Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So it's the weekend of Freedom Retreat. Yeah. So it wasn't too difficult when I was thinking about, what am I going to talk about? Freedom. So I thought I'd share a little bit about freedom as it comes to my mind and as I contemplate freedom. I'm reminded of the Course teaching, or what the Course teaches in terms of freedom, which is a mind that is unburdened by the idea of sin, or a mind where sin cannot enter. And so, as I think about this week has been quite interesting for me, because it started off on Tuesday. I flew in from Hawaii. I took a red-eye from Hawaii, and for those of you who've ever taken a red-eye, they call it a red-eye for a reason. Yeah. And so I got to LA, and I was really tired, but there was a lot of things that I wanted to do, and so I spent the day meeting friends and doing my thing, and then I flew to Colorado on a 6:30 a.m. flight. Again, I was really tired, and so the narrative kept playing in my mind that I was tired. And I made my way. I was making my drive up to here to the hotel, and I was driving with Antoinette. It was great company coming up, and so I had this narrative in my mind about how tired I am. I've traveled. I've come from Hawaii, and I was so invested in this story. But there was salvation, so I thought, in the narrative as well, because the narrative, the way it was playing along, was I'm going to get to the hotel. I showed up around 2 o'clock, so I was early. I even asked Antoinette, what time does this start? She's like, 7:30. I'm like, so I'm going to get to the room. I'm going to lay down. And in my mind, there was also this thought that, it wasn't in my awareness that I'd even have a roommate. So I get to the front desk, and they're looking for the room. They're doing a thing. 15-20 minutes go by, and then she comes back and she says, "Oh, sorry, but your room's not ready." It's like, okay. And then all of a sudden I can feel like there's like a feeling of like something's going wrong. And the beautiful thing, and I credit the Course with this, is that even in that experience of there's something going wrong, there's still an experience or an awareness that despite there's something wrong, there's something untouched. And so there's something going wrong, so the narrative says. And she's like, yeah, and it won't be ready until 6 o'clock. Okay. Where's that portal again? The portal. Oh, okay, there's still that awareness. And then she says, oh, and your roommate hasn't checked in. Okay, roommate. And so there's this awareness, there's this presence that is untouched by whatever is arising. So there's still there's a willingness to watch without judgment. But I was still seemingly at the effect of what was happening. There was a charge. And so it just was coming out. It was like, well, I want a room and I want my own room. Okay, that came out of my mouth. And so much for my self-concept, my idea of myself, that I was cool in every situation. And so, and I really don't remember the details right, soon after that. I just remember confusion, really confusion in the mind. And so eventually, Cheryl came out. Cheryl Kaplan was so sweet. She came out. She just came with just a bunch of love, and the awareness that there's something untouched, which is closer to me than anything that was appearing in perception. For me, really was the portal to what's true. Course in Miracles, in a couple of lines, is summed up in the beginning, in the introduction. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. With the acceptance of those two lines, you don't even have to do the Course. David Hoffmeister started us off, or kicked us off earlier this week, and talked about no compromise. There is no compromise in those two lines. So the question is what is present that is untouched? What is present that is not at the effect of anything? And so I feel like awakening is really coming into that awareness, or allowing or accepting that awareness, because the other discovery that comes clear is that is always there. What is untouched and unalterable is never not there. In fact, a lot of times in my experience, I've had people close to me who may be dealing with an issue or something, and the truth is, I can never guarantee or say anything about the world in terms of perception or what's happening in form. But the one thing I can promise, no matter what's happening, is that you will always be okay. Even if we use the timeline, which is, yes, it's illusory, but let's use it for the purpose of peace, for the purpose of guiding us back. If we look at the timeline, we've all experienced things like death, things like disease, heartbreak, perhaps financial struggle. But through it all, you've always been okay. You're okay. In our deepest fear, that's all we want to know, is that we're okay. And so the other thing that I saw that started to happen in the midst of the confusion, where I didn't have, for some reason, that recognition of being okay wasn't as loud, if you will. Although there was, again, there's a presence or an awareness of something that was untouched, which really is which is the portal for me, which is the Holy Spirit for me. There was also, I can feel this temptation to want to be alone. As if the answer was going to come by further separating myself from others of the world, the perceived world. And so I wanted my own room. And the irony is that, like 15 minutes later, the guy comes back, "We got your room. It's for tomorrow, but you'll have your own room." I'm like, "Oh, I got that room." But then I asked, what is it for? To be alone? To hold on to the misperception? It's a crazy thought, really. Isn't it strange? Like when we feel like we're confused or we're hurt, we sometimes have this tendency to want to be alone, to separate even further. And that's what I was feeling, that somehow salvation will be found alone. And that's the way that the narrative works. That's the way the ego works. Its aim is to create an experience of separation, so of course, why not be alone? Then I found out my roommate was Dove Fishman. I said, "Oh boy, what did I do? What did I ask for?" I got what I quote-unquote wanted. So then I felt guilty. Dove's gonna think I don't like him. It's a funny narrative, huh? And then I spent the first night with Dove, and as you can imagine, for me it was just very symbolic of spirit working through Dove and the form. to remind me of what's really wanted, which was to join. And I think it was only moments or seconds after walking into the room where that was revealed very clearly. We spent the night talking about the Course and a whole bunch of other things, including, this, it seems like there's this moment, I'm calling it a moment, but I don't really know what it is. But at some point, there's this recognition where truly the narrative is seen is clearly just seen as just not you. None of it. None of it. David Hoffmeister also talked about the word but. I understand this but. I get it, but when we talk about us not being the narrative, we're not the narrative. None of it. None of it is true. Yeah, but I need to... No, not either. I'm a Course in Miracles student and teacher. No, not that either. We started off with the word trust this weekend. And sometimes trust feels like something you need to do, right? You have to trust. But I kind of see it as trust is really all there is. And so if that is obscured, what I'm doing is really mistrusting. So trust is really easy because that's really all there is. That's the only I don't even think it's a choice. It's really the only choice there is, but it's not even a choice. Mistrust, I think there's doing in that. There's effort to say no. And so with this checking into the hotel, there was a mistrust. I had already decided on the way up on my travels what I needed, which was my own room, my own space, and a chance to sleep. That was the narrative. But I'm not upset for the reason I think. The narrative itself is a setup. We can justify it. I'm sure there's people here that say, oh, I know what that feels like, getting off the plane. Yeah, we can play that game, but that too is not real. None of it. And so what's left is really freedom. In the emptiness, the freedom of not being burdened by sin. What is sin? Well, we can come up with a lot of sins, but really at the core of what we're talking about, it is this thought that you're a person and that we're separate. This idea that I'm making my way through the world, when in actuality the world's making its way through a mind, our mind. And what keeps the experience of separation going is always the belief and the buy into the narrative. Course says planning is a defense against God. I was planning in that car ride home to the hotel. I had the plan laid out. I did. And it's so subtle. It's really subtle. When we talk about planning as a defense against God, and certainly that seems clear when we talk about a calendar and we're thinking, what we're going to do next week, next year. And we understand that things won't necessarily work out the way we want them to work out. But it's even subtler than that. Planning what I'm going to do on the break or the lunch, even as subtle as that. Are we willing to be wrong about that narrative too? When you get out of bed, when I get out of bed, the thoughts of, I I gotta brush my teeth, I gotta do this, that's all the narrative. So all of that is given up to be forgiven. And what's left is freedom, unburdened by the narrative. And so the afternoon, spending it with Cheryl when I was checking in, we went out, we went to the grocery store, we had cigarettes, we joined, we talked about the week, and it was just like, it was the miracle, it was living the miracle. It was the willingness to allow Spirit to dissolve the narrative. It wasn't necessarily me doing anything, but just the willingness. And so it just from that point on, it was just like, okay, reality sets in. This sets in. A definitionless awareness is allowed to speak to me, and I can hear it. Not in words for me. I always used to think there's a lesson in the Course that says God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Well, I'm paying attention and I don't hear anything. Like, where is God speaking to me? Really? And certainly in this process, certainly we use symbols as ways of reminding us of God and what our purpose is, and that's a lot of fun. But it also felt like there were moments that God wasn't speaking to me. So if God's voice speaks to me all through the day, then it must be that I'm missing something. Something's weird. I must be obscuring His voice. So then the question is, what is in my experience all through the day? What is it that I really cannot get away from? What is really here? And the paradox is that the answer is so loud that it's overlooked. Yet it's lived. And the acceptance of that, the allowance of that, or that itself, is freedom. There's no worries here. None whatsoever. So there's no need for mistrust. David Fishman talked about equality. Lived awareness is the same in all of us. Therein lies equality. And so all of perception is seen as the same. Because my function is simply to live awareness. And we're all doing it. The question is, are we aware of it or not? And so in equality and in the sameness of perception, there's a recognition, or it becomes obvious that the narrative isn't true. That's where you can see it, because the narrative is all about inequality, and all about differences. And then Maria shared about happiness. Born out of that awareness is this happiness. It really is this contentment. It doesn't have to look a certain way. But it's born out of that portal of freedom that is untouched and unburdened by sin. It has nothing to do with form. It has nothing to do with perception. But yeah, in our happiest moments, our mind is not filled with the narrative. in our habit, we really sink into the joy and the happiness when we're experiencing it. There's a recognition that there isn't organizing of thought when we're really happy. It's not necessary. The whole point of organizing thought is because there's a belief that that is going to get you happiness. But it's that organizing of thought that blocks happiness. And so Maria talked about happiness. And that's freedom. It's not denying anything in perception. The course this is perception. We have fun with it. Bruce so eloquently shared on his slides. I love his humor. There he goes. Hi, Bruce. And we're having fun with it. In some ways, it's actually kind of funny because when you start to as we gather here, we think about the simplicity, really, of this message. And we get a whole weekend together to experience this together. Remember it. Play with it. And so I feel very honored to introduce or to start off the roundtables, which will start momentarily. Because I really believe that the roundtables are an opportunity to, or we seemingly give ourselves permission to bask in definitionless awareness and allow whatever's on the heart to arise without judgment. No matter what it is, no matter who it's coming from. See, we're not equal in form, but we're equal in presence. We're equal in the definitionless awareness. We're equal in spirit. And so as we bask in that and allow it to come up as it comes up and share in witnessing without judgment, we're reminded, oh, that's not true. Oh, narrative is not true. We see past it. And we unleash anything we thought was real, that we wanted to hold on to and wanted to hide, just like I wanted to hide. Just like I wanted to be alone in my thoughts, as if they were private. It's a trick. No private thoughts. Because there's no private mind. There's no private person. And so spiritual roundtables, that's unleashed, that's allowed. And so the only thing I share as you go into your breakouts is to hold on to this. Whatever lies behind the symbol of freedom, whatever that means to you, whatever that comes up for you, that's the theme. And it may be that there's a thought of what's preventing freedom, what perceptually is preventing freedom. That's beautiful. It's the perfect place in a spiritual roundtable to let that out. Watch without judgment. And so that's really what I'm committed to in everything that I do, is to watch without judgment. And this weekend has just simply been a testament that that works. And so I didn't change my room, of course. I stayed with that. I mean, come on. Why would I be alone? I'm at the weekend of Freedom Retreat. I had a chance to join it. And it's been so lovely to also have lunch and sit with other people and share and join and hear what's on their mind. And it's really been a joy. And I just feel like this weekend has just yet been another example of the miracles that really abound, that miracles abound. And yeah, just my heart is so full. So So thank you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Barrett, who's going to lead us on the logistics of this.